I'm Shannon and welcome to today's video. So I am back with another Disney Vacation Club installment, and today we're going to talk about DVC rental. So I will say this video is kind of more for my own benefit because I have in the last 2 weeks talked to 4 different friends and tried to explain, kind of giving them a DVC rental 101 on how to rent and what it means and everything. So my purpose of this video is to hopefully anybody else that asks, I can just send them this video, explain it, and hopefully get the basics out and then hopefully come with some questions. So if you watch this and you're brand new to DVC rental, I'm going to explain the basics of the process. Now, if you're familiar with it, this video might not be for you, but if you have specific questions, I am always looking for new ideas as far as what topics to cover. So if you have topics that you want me to cover regards to DVC or rental or whatever, please leave it in the comments below because I'm always looking for new topics and I'm happy to answer your questions. So with that, let's go ahead and get started on what is DVC rental. So Disney Vacation Club owners or members can sometimes rent out their points. So if you're not familiar with DVC, basically each member buys a set amount of points. First, personally, our family, we own 275 points. That can get you different things. I mean, right now we're booking for our trip in beginning of December. We are currently booked at Old Key West, and I think it's running us about 176 points. However, if we wanted to stay at Grand Floridian, it would be 277 points. So it's a very big range as far as just the accommodations. We're in a 1-bedroom, so it really just depends. So, that's another question, and that will probably be a topic in the future, is how many points do I need? That's another topic. But as far as renting, it really depends on the accommodations. Some of, obviously, studios are going to be the least expensive, and then grand villas are going to be the most, or actually the Polynesian bungalows will be the most. But that kind of runs, and then the cheapest studios tend to be, I think, the Standard at Boardwalk or the Value at Jambo House. Those go very fast. I think there's only like 12 of them. And then Old Key West is another least expensive, Saratoga. So it goes up, and then it goes up to Polynesian, Grand Floridian, and Riviera being the most expensive point-wise. So keep that in mind. So you could be the same week, and 1 week at Old Key West and at Grand Floridian are going to cost you a different amount of points. So when you're talking with members, a lot of members sometimes can't use their points. Example, right now, there's a global pandemic. So there's a lot of members who can't travel. I actually have a friend in Canada who is currently renting out her points. She's had 2 trips canceled because she's not allowed to cross the border. They want to come to Walt Disney World, but they can't. So they have now decided to go ahead and list their points with a broker to try and rent them. So there's a couple ways you could go with renting, but renting is basically you are going to rent the points. So let's say the week that we're doing in December, 176 points at Old Key West. I could either contact a member who is trying to rent out their points, or I could go through a broker and contact them. Now, going through a broker there's a middleman. It adds some protection, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. And it's going to cost you more. You're basically paying for that extra layer for that person. They're going to find the member. They're going to have that kind of cushion for you. But it is going to cost you. If you go direct through a member, it's a little bit riskier. Unfortunately, there are dishonest people in this world. I have personally rented from both, but there is a risk, and there's just that less layer, but you can save more. So I've rented for $15 a point, but if you're going, I think the going rate right now through a broker is $19 or $20 a point. So it really varies. So you can save a lot of money going straight through the member, but it's also a little riskier. So keep that in mind. But let's say the 176 points, let's say I was going through David's or DVC Rental or DVC Rental Store. There's a lot. I'm going to post a link below of all the different places where you can find how to rent. This post is not sponsored by anybody. So I could contact them and say, I want a week at Old Key West, and they're going to say, okay, it's $20 a point, it's 176 points, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be this amount. That's the flat amount. If I was going to book at, let's say, Grand Floridian, 277 points, and then they would find the member to look for that who has that many points. And if it's between 7 and 11 months, it would have to be an owner at that specific resort who has home resort advantage, and book through them. So that can also add, but that's basically the gist of it. You're paying by points, so the reservation at Old Key West is going to be a lot less expensive than at Grand Floridian because it's just less points, but you're paying the same amount per point, more or less. Some brokers will charge you more for certain resorts, Grand Floridian, Beach Club, Boardwalk, if it's in the 7 to 11 month home resort advantage. Grand Californian is another one. So those are kind of the basics of renting points. As I mentioned, you can rent through a broker or a member. But when you go through a member, you have to find the member, and then you have to negotiate. And then it's going back and forth as far as finding the reservation and if there's availability, and there's a lot of back and forth. And then also a member, if you have a reservation, let's say 176 points, and that member has 190 points, they're going to want somebody that's going to take all 190 points. Some might not worry about it and say, okay, those 14 points are a wash, but some might say, I really want to get somebody who's going to take all 190. So it really depends. So that's how you do if you are looking for a specific reservation. If you're looking for a specific reservation, you really need to book at 11 months. So you should be contacting the broker at 11 and a half months so that they can you can get everything in. Especially if you're looking at Beach Club or Boardwalk during Food and Wine. Grand Californian, absolutely value at the Jumbo House if you're trying to get a value Jumbo House. Those are really hard to come by, so I will say those. I tried one time renting and it didn't work out, and they had the reservation at 11 months and they weren't able to get it. So that's if you're renting for a specific reservation. One of the things that we're seeing now, though, is a lot of confirmed reservations where members are booking reservations, and then either listing them for rent on their own, or they're listing them with a broker. For example, my friend that I mentioned in Canada had a confirmed 2-bedroom reservation that they had booked for themselves. They're not able to travel, so they listed that reservation with David's, and they are waiting to see if someone takes them up on their offer. It's been sold out. It was sold out, I think, at 10 months. So it's a great reservation, but that's what they're doing. So you can find some really great deals for confirmed reservations where, like example, during the 50th anniversary. Right now, everything is sold out as far as DVC. Studio, Saratoga, everything is sold out for the 50th anniversary. But some of the brokers or some members are renting out reservations that they are already confirmed, and they are renting them out. Obviously, those are going to be a really big premium, but that's the gist of renting points. So let's talk about the pros and the cons. Okay, so pros first. You're gonna save a lot of money off the rack rate. Now, a lot of times you'll see save 50% off rack rate. Yeah, okay, it's not really 50%. Maybe in certain times, but it's probably not. And especially not through a broker. The broker's prices have definitely increased, but that's because there's a need for them, and there's, people pay. It's supply and demand. So people are paying $19, $20 a point, especially for certain times and for certain resorts. You could probably get Saratoga sometimes can sometimes have deals on the Saratoga points because it's just a huge resort and there's more availability there. So, you might pay a little bit less for Saratoga points than you would for someone with Grand Californian or Grand Floridian points. So keep that in mind. But you are going to save money. And I would say rather than 50%, you're probably going to pay what you would pay for a moderate resort at deluxe pricing. So keep that in mind. So you're probably going to pay, let's say it's $3,000 to stay at Caribbean Beach. You might be paying that to stay at Saratoga Springs or Old Key West, or maybe even Riviera, depending on the time of year, the deals. What I always suggest is get the pricing, figure out how much it's going to be to rent whatever resort it is, or compare, and then go on Disney's website and see how much it's gonna cost you. So also when you're renting DVC points, there's no tax. Like that's the flat rate. Now, if there's any fees or anything that they charge, that's included. They should tell you what the flat rate is, but there's no additional cost. There's no parking fee. Parking is included in the maintenance fees that the members pay, so you're not paying for parking. Now, if you're staying on, you're paying cash, you're gonna pay that parking fee. And I think right now for deluxe, it's $25 a night. So keep that in mind. Also, you have all the fees that are added. Everything else is pretty much the same. So you can kind of compare. If the dining plan comes back, you can do that. So you have all the benefits. You can put your reservation once you get your reservation number. You can put that in My Disney Experience. So you can, right now there's no fast passes, but fast passes, dining, anything like that will be attached to your park pass reservations. That will go into My Disney Experience. Now let's talk about the cons. And there are some cons. So first of all, once you book and you pay, you can't change it. It's done. Like you can't say, oh, you know what? My in-laws want to come. We need a 2-bedroom instead of a 1-bedroom. Sorry. You can try and see if maybe they can upgrade, and not upgrade. You could increase it, but it's going to be really hard because most likely the owner that booked your reservation, it would have to be the same owner. And that owner probably doesn't have any points left. So I would say 99% of the time you're locked in. Every once in a while, there's always an exception to a rule, but you're pretty much locked in. You can't say, oh, we need a 2-bedroom now. It's just not gonna happen. Now, some of the brokers, with everything that's happened in the last year, some of the brokers have now increased or given some sort of cancellation policy. That was not around before, and there was there were so many people that were just out of money because of the pandemic, and I know the brokers really had to change how they did business. I think their hearts were in the right place, but this was something nobody saw coming, and they've had to change how they do business. So I know DVC Rental Store now has a cancellation policy. It's not, you don't get your money back, but you get, I think, a voucher, and it's depending on how soon you cancel. And I think David's has an insurance, and I think DVC Rental has an insurance policy through their own. So they all have their different policies. So I would say research what's best for you and what works for you and your family. So when we rented a couple times. We rented from the DVC store one night in July for Beach Club. Well, that was like right after they reopened. And one of the things that happened was Stormalong Bay was going to be closed. And we had booked that resort for Stormalong Bay, and we were still going. I mean, it was supposed to be a staycation. We weren't planning on going to the parks at all, and that was it. And it was like, okay, well now all we have is the quiet pool, which was fine, but we had rented points to stay at Beach Club because we can never get in there at 7 months. It is what it is. So we were going regardless, couldn't get our money back. We ended up having a great time. We went to the parks and the parks were empty, so it ended up working out. But things are, you're kind of locked in. And then, like I said, you also can't manage anything. So let's say when the dining plan returns, if you want to get the dining plan, you actually have to go through the owner. The owner has to book it for you. Now, a lot of things as far as anything on My Disney Experience, ordering your magic bands. You don't get magic bands for free anymore, but you can get a discounted rate for the magic bands. I still like magic bands. I'm old-fashioned that way, if magic bands are considered old-fashioned at this point. But there's a lot of things you can't do on your own, so keep that in mind. But I think the big thing is the cancellation. So you have to know you're coming. Travel insurance is available, so there's also separated travel insurance. I would highly recommend it, but look what the plan is, because I know a lot of people did have their own travel insurance, but it didn't cover pandemics. So a lot of people, and there's my dog, so sorry. There's a lot of people didn't get money back. So keep that in mind. I know a lot of the brokers did work with with their renters, but for those people that went through individual owners, a lot of them were out of money because the owners lost their points, and it was just a big mess. So hopefully We're not going to see another global pandemic, at least in my lifetime, but it's something to consider because things happen. And I think what 2020 showed us is that the unexpected can happen anytime. So you may be like, we always go first or second week of December, but something could happen. So that's something where you just have to keep in mind. And are you prepared to lose that money? Or if not, what's the policy? What's the cancellation policy with the broker you went with? And if you went through the owner, read their contract. So also that if you book through a regular owner, make sure they have a contract. If they don't have a contract, you need to make sure they have a contract. Most owners that do rent, there's a couple contracts out there. So most owners do rent, that they have their own contract. But those are some of the pros and cons as far as renting DVC points. So who should rent DVC points? So if you know you're coming, or there's a special occasion and you need a large room, let's say you're coming for your child's first birthday and all the grandparents want to come and you need a 2-bedroom, it is going to save you a lot of money to be able to book through renting DVC points. So I highly recommend it for those types of situations, because booking a 2-bedroom direct through Disney is going to cost you a lot of money. Remember, you can rent DVC villas through the cash on the hotel side. There's 2%, I think, for every resort, every DVC resort that Disney holds back and rents out for cash. There's a law there that's above my pay grade, but it's going to save you a lot of money in that regard. So that's a really good option, if you're going to rent. Also, if you're thinking about buying into DVC, rent some points. Learn, if you're not sure if you're going to like the Riviera, you may take the tour of the Riviera, but am I going to like this? Is this going to be as convenient? Honestly, when I stayed at the Riviera, we stayed there in June. We thought, we're like, okay, we want to stay there. We didn't expect to like it as much as we did. We absolutely loved the resort. When we looked at it in pictures and all the videos and stuff, we didn't really think it was going to be our jive. We loved it. And we weren't even using the Skyliner because the parks were closed at that point. But the resort was absolutely fantastic. So we liked it a lot more. And as we've stayed at the different resorts, we've learned which resorts we like more than we thought. So we thought we were going to love Bay Lake, and it was okay. And then Old Key West is one of our favorites. So it really depends on, and everybody's different. So renting DVC points can give you also an option to see maybe which resort you want to buy into. So do you want to buy into Beach Club and have that 2042 end date, but be that close to the back of Epcot? Or do you want to invest in Riviera or Grand Floridian or Polynesian or whatever resort? That's a good option as well. So you can kind of get a taste of the resort, because taking a tour of a resort and then staying there can be two different things, and you might be surprised as far as which one you like. So those are some good people that are good options as far as why you should rent DVC points. Another reason, if you are a planner. So if you're a planner, that's a good person that's going to rent DVC points. I'm a planner. That's one of the reasons why we bought into DVC. So DVC members have to be planners, but then also DVC renters have to be planners. Because if you want a certain resort, you really have to be booking out 7 months in advance. What I will tell you is, if you are looking on the Disney website, Disney World, and you're looking and it says, oh, there's a value studio at Jambo House, that's the cash side. That is probably, I would say, 99% of the time, it's not available through DVC. So knowing some DVC brokers, I'm sure that they get a lot of questions as far as the cheapest points, the Tower Studios, the Jambo House, value studios or value 1-bedrooms. Those go very quickly. Those go right at 11 months. So if you're seeing them on the cash website, that doesn't mean they're on the DVC website. So the two availability buckets are very different. So keep that in mind when you're looking. So you really have to be a planner. Right now, when we just booked our 7 months out for our December trip, we are owners at Saratoga Springs. We had a reservation at Saratoga. The only resorts that had that week available in full were Jambo House, Kidani, and Old Key West. Fortunately, we wanted to go to Old Key West, so it worked out. Everything else is booked in a 1-bedroom, and 1-bedrooms are the last category usually to book. So, just keep that in mind. Planners are good candidates for DVC rentals. The flip side of that is you can get a really great confirmed reservation deal if you have the flexibility to go last minute. Pretty much David's, DVC Rental Store, DVC Store, all of them. I'm going to post the links to all of them below. They all have confirmed reservations and they all have deals. So I have seen some amazing deals, like $10 a point. So, and I mean, we live 3 hours away, so I am always looking like, is there anything available this weekend for really cheap points? Because if something popped up and it was for 2 nights and for $10 a point, I might just go. So that's a really good option as well. There was 2 years ago, I needed to go up for a night to Orlando, and I needed to stay overnight. I contacted DVC Rental Store and I said, hey, I just need a night. Do you have any what they call distressed points? And they said yes, and they were able to get me a last minute, I think it was like 5 days before the reservation at Old Key West. I think I paid $100 because it was $10 a night and it was $10 a point. So I paid $100 to stay at Old Key West for 1 night. So it was very convenient. That doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. So you either need to be a planner or you have to have the flexibility to go last minute. But those are kind of the 2 buckets, but really the best candidate are those people that are planners. So there you have it. Those are some basics of renting DVC points, and as well as some pros and cons as far as whether or not you should rent DVC points. We are DVC owners. We have never rented out our points. We have rented points. Now we have used, I haven't used David's. I have heard great things about them. I haven't used David's. We have actually used DVC Rental, DVC Store, and DVC Rental Store. So there's a couple. And we've used all 3 just at different times. And it really just depends. I think for most of them I think DVC Store I got, I think we did because somebody had beach club points. And then a couple other of them we did last minute. So I've gotten some confirmed reservations. So we've done that, and we've also rented straight through a member. And I will post a link to a Facebook group where you can find members that will post, as well as mouseowners.com. It's a forum, mouseowners.com. There's some owners there that will post, and you can kind of renting certain points, etc. So you also have to look at, it will say they're expiring or when the points expire. So keep in mind that if it's a use year of August, you have to check out by August 1st. So whatever the use year is, so if the use year is August 20, those points need to be used by July 31st. So that means you have to check out by August 1. So keep that in mind. That usually rarely happens as far as overlapping, but if someone's points are expiring, like I said, they're called distress points. So you can get some really great deals. So I'm going to post the links to all of those. Again, this video is not sponsored by anybody. I will disclose that DVC Rental Store does sponsor sometimes my podcast, DVC Newscast. So if you're looking for DVC news, we cover all type of Disney news, but some specifically Disney Vacation Club news. They do sponsor that podcast from time to time. But me personally, this post is not sponsored. I've used those 3. David's, I know a lot of people who have used them. I've also gone straight through the owners as well. So we probably need to buy more points, but we've gotten some lucky because we're 3 hours away. We have been able to get some of those last minute deals. So hopefully this helps you. Hopefully this doesn't confuse you even more. But again, if you have questions, please leave them below. I want to start doing this topic and kind of giving you some more topics as to discover, answer more questions as far as renting DVC points or even buying DVC. So if you have questions, please leave them below. Any ideas for a future video, I'm happy to take that in consideration because I'm always looking for new topics. So with that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.